At thy feet, in the bonds of love we meet. Hear our voices, we entreat. God defend our free land. God Pacific triples up from the shines of strife and war. Make her praises heard afar. God defend New Zealand. Men of every creed and race gather here before thy face, asking thee to bless this place. God defend our free land from dissension, envy, hate, and corruption. God, our state, make our country good and great. God defend New Zealand. Peace not war shall be our boast, but should foes assail our coast, make us then a mighty host. God defend our free land. Lord of battles, in thy might, put our enemies to flight. Let our cause be just and right. God defend New Zealand. Let our love for thee increase. May thy blessings never cease. Give us plenty, give us peace. God defend our free land from dishonor and from shame. God, our country's spotless name, crown her with immortal fame. God defend New Zealand. May our mountains ever be freedom's ramparts on the sea. Make us faithful unto thee. God, defend our free land. Guide her in the nation's land, preaching love and truth to men, working out thy glorious plan. God defend New Zealand. Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. Holy moly. Gosh, God defend New Zealand, the best karakia ever. And you know what? The more I play it, the more I get to feel.
Before you go to bed tonight, drink a glass of this and
sorry, it's just the YouTube doing its thing. The more I hear it, the more I become familiar with the words. You can easily Google the words. They have it in Te Reo Māori as well as in English, and it's one of the most powerful karakia I think I will ever have the opportunity to share and to express. The verses are just so powerful. We grew up with the first verse. I had no idea growing up that there were several other verses, and just looking at the English version, the second verse: men of every creed and race gather here before thy face, asking thee to bless this place. God defend our free land from dissension, envy, hate, and corruption. Guard our state, make our country good and great. God defend New Zealand. Bloody powerful, eh? Anyway, thank you, whānau, for tuning in. I know it's been a while. I did have a wonderful weekend with my darling. As you can see, I'm still home. I was supposed to travel back to New Plymouth today, but Eki, I'm just trying to, when you heard my fridge beeping? Well, that was a warning sign, right? A warning sign that something, and it's not an old fridge, it's a whirlwind, quite a flash looking thing. It's quite a big fridge. Anyway, that was the fridge warning me I was about to kua mate, eh? And it did in the weekend, so I had to spend today. Yesterday, we had to clear it out. We did a lot of cooking because our kai thawed out whilst in the freezer, but that's all right. We cooked up a lot of the meat, and we shared our meat out. But I had to work really hard. One, I thought I could get a tradesman in to look at our fridge. Well, it's only a few years old. It's not ancient. It's not old, but apparently Whirlpool is the brand that I use, and every single whiteware maintenance person I rang does not do Whirlpool, and the reason why they don't is because they can't get the parts in the country. And so I had to buy me a new fridge freezer today purely because we can't get the parts into the country. So anyway, I was supposed to travel to Taranaki to be with my papa. But my family is saying, that they're doing well with him, so hence the reason why you can still see I'm here in the Waikato. But thank you to Desiree, Liz, Godfrey, kia ora Eunice, the kia ora Donna. Just so awesome to have you here. Kia ora Donna from the sovereign lands of Darug Nation, Outer Sydney, land of Moimoia. Kia ora mai, Queer Eunice. So thank you, whānau, for tuning in. It has been a while, and I have, as you know, been really focused on my papa. And before I get on to what I want to, what I've put on the title and the comments, what we're going to talk about, I guess this is an opportunity to share with you my experience with my papa because we've been in the hospital quite a few weeks. Um, what does Sissy say? Kia ora whae, Donna. God bless you and your whānau. Thanks for keeping us in touch. You're welcome, hon. Kia ora, Marion. Oh, and I've put this one up from Eunice. Godfrey, kia ora whae. Kia ora, Hunt. How are you? Liz, you're right, Fire. Didn't know the other lyrics to it. That's right. God defend New Zealand, and we do. It's just the most powerful. Every verse just touches you right here, and after you've sung it, it picks you up. It absolutely picks you up, and I believe we have to take our national anthem into our parliament because we know that there's. I'm just gonna say it. There's so much corruption around the world. There's so much corruption. I saw on the news, and you saw Trudeau, you saw Boris Johnson, Biden. All the ones that have been trained. I'm not sure about Biden, but I'd say good. The French Prime Minister, they're all alumni of the World Economic Forum, and it doesn't sit well with me. Watching it on the news that they're making decisions, they're having discussions, they're laughing at Putin, right? They're laughing at him, and yet lest we forget, and I'll talk a little bit about that shortly, but. I mean, I probably could talk for hours tonight because I haven't spoken to you for ages. But I won't bore you. I have missed you all. But I do want to share my experience being in hospital. While I was there, a lot of people passed away while I was in hospital, and was heartbreaking to hear the whānau in the next room or a couple of rooms down, or even a few doors down, crying because their loved one have passed away. And here I was, fighting for my papa. And um, it's okay. I'm gonna share this with you because he did get good care while he was in hospital. He did get good care, but I think it's because I was there. Because on the last day after after the last day before I came back to the Waikato, there was slippages of some of the care, but there was there were a couple of incidences that happened at the hospital. It wasn't until I spoke to Papa Pim, and he's like my mentor. He's a kaumata, very, very wise Māori kaumata. And we haven't been speaking over the last few weeks because he's been in the same position as me, and but with him he was dealing with a brother, a very, very unwell brother. So he was fighting the hospital system as well. And what I experienced with my father is that the renal unit wanted to, and I think I shared this on another live, the renal unit wanted Dad to go into elderly care. And my father said to me, please do not send me into elderly care. And I said, Dad, I won't let them send you there. And so I had these challenges with the renal unit. Now, I've received Dad's file, his medical record, and he did not have actually stated, without giving away too much of Dad's private information, but it actually stated the point that told me a lot about his health issues, which I was already aware of. But there was an important thing that came up in his file that really stood out to me, and that he had no cardiovascular problems prior to 2021. And that was one of the most important things that came out. So he only had inflammation. He only received inflammation of the heart after he received the vaccination. So he is vaccine injured. And I made sure I was clear to the doctors. You've seen the file. You know that my father is vaccine injured. And then what happened after his booster, he got pleurisy. Pleurisy effusion, it's called. So it's similar to pericarditis. It's fluid around the lining of the lungs, and so fluid was getting into his lungs as well, and so he got pericarditis and pleurisy after his boosters, and that's when his whole mouth had thrush, and he had ulcers all in his mouth, down his throat, and into his puku. And so he couldn't eat, he couldn't drink, and he was in dire straits. So those are all serious side effects of the vaccine. So he'd been vaccine injured twice, and I did say to the doctors, you better not boost my father again, because now the government's pushing for the second booster. So that's 4 that they're after. But here's what happened. So in the hospital, the doctors spoke to us, and they said, spoke to me, and they said, we can pull Dad off his dialysis, and then let nature take its course. And I says, are you saying pull him off his dialysis? So what will happen? He would go into a diabetic coma, and then he would pass, basically, is what they were saying. We can do that. And I said, no, absolutely not. If there's anything we can do to treat him, then we will be treating him. You will not manage his demise, is the word I use. And then just last week, a young doctor came in, and because we normally get the same doctors, but this was a new doctor. She came in. She was young, and she seemed a little bit nervous, and I'd seen her around the ward, but I hadn't seen her before. And she says, and she spoke about Dad being able to make up his own mind, that he has mana. I tell you what, apart from wanting to punch you, seriously, I looked at her, I sat in shock, actually, because she was talking about Dad having his own mana to decide whether or not he wants to continue on with dialysis. And I was in shock when the nurse said that, because I'd pushed off the renal unit, trying to tell us as a whānau that so that's euthanasia, right? And then the doctor came, and euthanasia didn't work, because we said no, we want our father to. I said no, I want my father to be treated, and then to be told, well, he has his own mana to make up his own mind. That's suicide, whānau. They wanted him to decide whether or not he wanted to pull his dialysis. The hospital would stop his dialysis, and again, that would be his slow demise. He would go into a diabetic coma, and then he would pass, basically. And I was in such a shock that she had used the word mana in the same sentence. So I'm sitting with this information, and I guess this is the opportunity to share it with you, because when he was in hospital, he actually got really good care. I can't question the care. He got good care. I know it's because I was with him 24/7, and I gave him the majority of the good care. But they were, the nurses were great. I couldn't even question the doctors, I guess, apart from those 2 points, and apart from the renal unit. So there were 3 areas: the renal unit wanting him to go into elderly care, the doctors speaking of euthanasia, and then the doctors, and using the word mana in the same breath as actually, saying Dad has his own rights, that he has his own mana. If he chooses not to continue, then that's up to Dad. And I was like, he's not in any state. He's fighting hard to stay on this side of the earth. He's not in any state to even make those sort of decisions. So I've been sitting on that for a while, and I did share it with Papa Pim, and that's what he said. First it was euthanasia, then what they were speaking of was suicide. I didn't actually see it in that because I was, that's what happens when you're in it. Sometimes you can't, you've got to come out of it, and I guess this is what this break has done. It has allowed me to just think about all of that because at the time you're just hands on. 24-hour care aid, just hands on, and your brain doesn't have time at times when they come to you like that to think, shit, they're talking about suicide. I was just angry that they used the word mana. It's his mana, and we empower people to use their own mana. Now, fuck off. They were empowering him to choose to stop all medication, and they use the term as well. Sometimes we have to be the bearer of bad news, the bearer of bad news, and someone has to be the bearer of bad news. And I was like, gosh, they don't see. And then in hospital you had specialists coming in for this part of dad, for that part of dad, for that part of dad, and they all looked at dad in bits. And I says to them, you look at dad in your bits. I see my father as a whole person. I see him, but you only see him. And so, he might be doing well over here, but he's not doing too well over here. And so the left hand's not necessarily talking to the right hand. And that's another issue that I had. Now, I'm just sharing this, Fano, because this has been my experience looking after my father. And I'm telling you, that if any of your and you need to go there, and you need to be a carer for them, you need to be a boarder in hospital, because they don't have the time. I'm telling you now, they do not have the time. I went out and I said to the nurses, can you please shower them? The only time that they had to shower them, right? I said, you don't even need to shower dad, you just need to assist him. And I said, and he can help himself, and you just need to keep an eye on him. I had to go and do some stuff for the lawyer, because we have our court hearing on Friday. And I come back, and dad had showered himself. And I said to the nurse, I'd asked you. And she said, oh, we kept an eye on him. And I said, no, you didn't. Dad said that he had showered himself and there was no one there to assist him. So my point is, Fano, you've got to do it yourself. If you want the care, the health system, I'm not blaming the nurses either, because the health system is it's on life support. Our health system is broken. You heard of this Māori man who went to hospital, and because he swore, he said, I need a fucking I need fucking oxygen. And they got upset because he used the F word, and they sent him away. Security kicked him out. He came back to the hospital. It's in Palmerston North, I think it was. Don't quote me on that. I can't quite remember which hospital, but he came back 6 hours later, dead. He had died because he didn't get the care he needed. And we're hearing that more and more often. The Minister of Health is not going to admit that our health system is on life support. It's in major crisis. So my point is, if your babies are going into hospital, if your elderly parents or grandparents are going into hospital, someone needs to be there. Someone needs to be there. That's my point. And if the hospital had their way, my father wouldn't be. I don't believe my father would be this side of the earth today. And if he didn't get that 24-hour care, I don't think he'd be here. I truly believe that. So just food for thought, and just wanted to share that experience, Fano. Okay, I'm just going to go through just a few comments. Yes, same here. Kilda. Thank you. Oh, Kilda Gwyneth. Oh, kia ora e hoa. Thank you for joining. Thank you for it's been a while between lives. Kia ora. Thank you. Oh, ngā mihi, Lavinia. Thank you very much. I'll just quickly go through your comments. Yeah. Well, I mean that's the point, isn't it? That's the point. Thank you, Tigger, for tuning in. Kia ora. So what I'm going to do anyway, so I just wanted to share my experience with you in regards to my papa, and I've got to sort of tee up with the retailer who's delivering our fridge freezer and my daughter, because I'm looking at travelling back to New Plymouth tomorrow. And then on Friday, we're travelling to Whanganui because the court hearing for our wharipuni is on Friday. So, it's just that in itself has been quite devastating, that whole experience. And, the kaumātua have written up their affidavits. I've written up mine. Dad's written up, well, Dad has done his. And the stories, the history of our wharipuni it connects us to the kingitanga, it connects us to Whanganui and other iwi. And one kaumātua said that it's like the desecration of the cathedral in New Plymouth. That's how it feels for Ngā Ruahine to have the destruction of our wharipuni. It's the desecration at that level. And I just can't tell you the mamai that it feels. And I will see kanohi ki te kanohi, those trustees that have been pushing and have paid a lot of money for its demolition, paid a lot of money to a QC, paid a lot of money for security, paid a lot of money to get rid of asbestos, all of that. And yet we could have paid all that money into its protection. So another big take for me, another big personal take, but it's broader than that. And I had whānau, I had cousins who loved to share whakapapa, and yet they couldn't see that those raupo reeds that I was trying to protect, that my father was trying to protect, our kaumātua were trying to protect, had the sweat of our tupuna in them because they had built it. That is whakapapa. And that wharipuni is connected to our urupa, where our tupuna are buried, only metres away from the whare. That is whakapapa. If you say you believe in whakapapa, then you have to protect our taonga tuku iho. We have an obligation to protect those sort of taonga, and I will fight. If we lose in this court, we will appeal. We will continue to appeal. So watch this space, whānau. It's too important. It's about choosing your battles, and when you choose your battles, you make sure you go out to win. You make sure you go out to win. You don't choose battles to go out to lose, whānau. So anyway, I'll keep you updated. Hopefully I can do a live on Friday afternoon, maybe late Friday, if not Saturday, about the hearing for the protection of our wharipuni. Anyway, that's probably a whole other live. I am going to now, and I'm going to mute. So please let me know if you can't hear Russell Brand, because my settings might be a little bit out, whānau. Please let me know when I mute. If you can't hear Russell, message me, and then I will have to tutu with my settings. And well, anyway, I'm not the best for settings. Oh, there's a paper bag here too. So in here, in this paper bag, we've got heaps and heaps of rat tests, because another important issue is especially when you're around kaumātua, is you got to make sure that you are healthy, that you're not taking any ngangara down to them. And but after this, I want to have a little bit of a kōrero about what Russell is going to speak to now. And I'll mute myself and let me know straight away, Whānau, if you can't hear him. Then I have to tutu with the settings.
Our friend Jimmy Dore went on Tucker this week. So is the Bernie Sanders voting Democrat now a member of the far right? And what does it mean when the only place on the mainstream media where Jimmy Dore can go is Fox News? Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards truth, where we look at complex information from a variety of sources, bring them together and see what coalesces. Now, we talk about the mainstream media all the time, don't we? We talk about how defunct it is, how immoral it is, how the way that it's funded is complex and prevents it from conveying the kind of truth and even the kind of complexity that we are all entitled to hear and to try to understand. Today, I want to talk to you about Jimmy Dore appearing on Tucker Carlson. Isn't it interesting that Tucker Carlson is the only person that have like Glenn Greenwald on? He's the only person that will attack big business. And lots of you that are like left-leaning or Democrat in your previous biases or just in your persuasion will think that Tucker Carlson maybe is what did someone call him once? A human boat shoe. A lot of people don't care for Tucker Carlson. But what interests me is that Fox News used to be a channel that we continually berated and baited when it was like Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and all those guys. We used to torment them about their stance on numerous issues. But nowadays, if you want a channel that's going to criticize big business, big tech, big corporations, mainstream media generally and broadly, peculiarly, you're most likely to find that on Fox News. Why don't we have a leftist mainstream media outlet that would showcase a voice like Jimmy Dore's? Why is that? What has become of the left? If you don't subscribe to our channel already, subscribe to it now. And please turn on the notification bell to ensure that you see our new content. We upload a new video every single day, and they're all, without question, fantastic. Now let's get into this one.
No, for sure is that Vladimir Putin did it. Shut up, traitor. He did.
Even in his intro, Tucker Carlson is one of the few dissenting voices around the narratives around Putin and Russia. It used to be that demands for patriotism and an unblinking, unflinching, blind obedience to patriotic narratives was also the domain of the right. Strange the way things change.
Jimmy Dore is the host of Jimmy's Dore Show.
Jimmy's Dore Show.
Jimmy's Dore Show. We
like a show that Jimmy does about doors.
He joins us tonight. Now, are you keeping a list of all the things Putin is doing?
Russia's very powerful. They control a lot of things. They overthrew our government. They committed a coup on America. They control the gas prices, and Russia's responsible for our inflation.
Matt Stoller said that there's only $39 billion of trade between Russia and the United States of America, so economic sanctions are ultimately meaningless. Now, whether or not that's an oversimplification, you can decide for yourself whether or not you think the mainstream media and American government amplify the impact of the war between Russia and Ukraine to justify price hikes, economic inequality, intransigence in government. Do you think this is all as a result of the war between Russia and Ukraine? Or do you think there's ineptitude, inefficiency, and corruption elsewhere in American political culture?
Last time I checked, Russia couldn't get their good vodka into Trader Joe's. So I don't think they're really controlling everything like they say they are, okay? So the Democrats right now are in power. They have complete control of government. And like all politicians, they don't want to take the blame for anything.
This story from the Financial Times this weekend is a demonstration of how the Democrat Party is ultimately bereft of ideas and relies instead on trying to incite suspicion, doubt, and hatred. And in the absence of being able to use Trump as a kind of scapegoat or lightning rod for negativity and doubt, and remember, I'm not a fan of Trump, I know a lot of you guys like him, is content to use Putin in the exact same role. Former Secretary of State and Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton said in an interview with the Financial Times published Friday that the US is on the precipice of losing our democracy. We're standing on the precipice of losing our democracy, and everything that everybody else cares about then goes out the window. It seems to me that there are ideas, words, and even physical buildings that are held up as sacrosanct, as representatives of a set of ideals that I no longer see in practice in American life. Like, what is this democracy that Hillary Clinton is talking about? Where is this fairness? Where is this justice? I know the world could get a lot worse. I know I'd rather live in America than China. I'd rather live in America than feudal Britain. But that doesn't mean that we should stop aspiring to create more democratic, fairer societies. In Clinton's view, Putin's only realistic path to victory in Ukraine would be Trump's re-election in 2024. If Trump had won in 2020, he would have pulled out of NATO. I have no doubt about that, she says. There's a few assumptions here. One, why would Putin win the war in Ukraine if Trump was president? Well, how can you underwrite that statement by saying that there's collusion between Russia and Trump? Well, I think it's been proven that that simply wasn't the case. And I don't have any real reason to believe that NATO is unequivocally a positive force, far less that Trump would automatically leave NATO, although he frequently spoke relatively negatively about it.
They want you to blame everybody and everything or anybody and anything for the pain that you're feeling right now, except blame them, the people with the power right now. And so that's why everything comes back to Putin, because Putin is a proxy for their Trump hate.
Goddamn Putin, made me fall off my bicycle.
What they don't want us to realize is that we have a unipolar government, right? So if you vote for Joe Biden, you're voting for Goldman Sachs. If you Mitch McConnell, the same thing. You're voting for our oligarchy. True. And they don't want you to know that. And as soon as people wake up that we're
typical. I've had, so I'm having major technical problems. Even just talking to you now, I can see it. It's lagging, and yeah, it's doing some crazy stuff. So sorry, Fano, I've had to stop that video because it's still I've still got connection problems. Can't tell you why. At least at the hospital I have really good connection. So anyway, Fano, unfortunately that's the end of that corridor. But I was just reading someone's comment. Mata, was it Mata? No. I just saw someone's comment, sorry. Oh, Arapeta says, my elderly Māori clients were fearful of hospital for what you say. Yeah, and racism is real, and racism and biases come in all shapes and forms. I'm going to stop this. Sorry, Fano, can't share any more of Russell, but you sort of get the gist. Yeah, sorry, Fano. It was actually interfering with my so now it's not lagging as much. So maybe that was Russell. But anyway, so they're talking, the gist of his corridor was that they are using Putin as a proxy for Trump. They're amplifying Putin's involvement in the Russian war on Ukraine to justify inflation, fuel increases, so that we don't, or the people of the US or around the world don't look at their politicians and say, actually, it's your fault. And so Putin has been used as a political scapegoat. Now, I was reading this, and it's just food for thought, Fano. It was on my cousin's page, and I thought, yeah, that sort of sits in line with what Russell Brand was saying. We need to ask the questions. Are there any sanctions against Israel for the murder and destruction of innocent Palestinian women and children? Are there any sanctions against America for killing and destroying lives of innocent women and children in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Cuba, Vietnam, and even stealing their diamonds and gold? Were there any sanctions against America and France over the killing of Muammar Gaddafi and the destruction of Libya? Has there even been an American NATO soldier ever been punished for the raping and torturing of innocent women and children in those aforementioned countries? Are there sanctions against France for causing crisis and unrest in several African countries? These are these are all war crimes. America and NATO should be punished the way that they are asking us to punish Russia. Maybe it's time we understand that NATO, USA, and their allies are the most dangerous of our times. That's just food for thought. I'm not saying whether or not I agree with that comment or not, but I guess the gist of those comments are, if you're going to point the finger, you got three pointing back at you, and the US isn't squeaky clean, and it's just a reminder to us all that it's propaganda. They talk about Russia propaganda. This is propaganda as well, and we've just got to go in with our eyes open, and we've got to. I've always said, a good lawyer is a lawyer that asks the right legal question. If a lawyer asks the wrong legal question, then you might not get your day in court. So by asking the right legal question, then the lawyer's research and evidence will be based on that legal question, right? Same here. We have to be able to critique our governments, critique their mainstream media. I mean, I've lost absolute faith in all mainstream media. We know that they've been brought. We know that they're sponsored. We know that $327 million are going to the media. About $65 million have already gone. So they've been brought, and they don't want to jeopardize the $327 million. That means our fourth estate has gone. Some of you don't know what our fourth estate is. Well, we have the three government states. That's the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The legislature is Parliament. That's our 120 politicians. Our executive is caucus, or those the government in power who hold all the different portfolios, all the different ministries, and the judiciary is our court system. And the fourth estate is supposed to be mainstream media, but we know that they've let us down. When mainstream media lets us down, our democracy, when Hillary Clinton used the word precipice, our democracy is on a precipice. Well, it has been for a long time. There's perceived democracy, and our media haven't done what they are supposed to do and be the eyes and ears for the public. So there's that point. Now, so I just wanted to raise those 2 points and just to cover off what Russell was saying. Now, on Saturday, I did another live, and again, they all sit together, right? We've got to look at the broader view. Well, I tend to look at I like to have a broad view of the world, and then I come down and I come in. Some people do it the other way. They do the micro to the macro. I do the macro to the micro, and I like to scan to see my world view. And what Russell Brand talked about on Saturday when I shared, and I had great connection on Saturday. Tonight was Yeah, my connection was kaka tonight. But anyway, he said that the rich and powerful, they their wealth is astronomical. Their wealth is astronomical. Those aren't his terms. But, he talks about fossil fuel companies have record profits. Wealthy corporations and private individuals have record profits. And yet they're telling us because of inflation that we have to lower our wages while they have record profits. So and that a lot of us derive our reality from mainstream media, and we shouldn't. Mainstream media are all part of that, of that whole mechanism. And that whole mechanism is to push a certain narrative, right? And we get our reality from that narrative. And it's great. Neil Oliver is another one that I've been following. And I haven't put up any of his videos of late because he shifted to another platform and he uses, or 2 or 3 minute intro to his corridor on another platform. And I struggle to get onto his other platform. So hence the reason why I haven't shared his corridor. But he from a slightly different angle. He comes more from, because he's an historian, right? We know him as here in Aotearoa. He did what was it called? Coastal, I think, or the coast or something. It was talking about those countries, and he would go around the coast and talk about those different countries. And he did one on New Zealand, on Aotearoa, and it was brilliant. But he is a historian. And he believes that the New World Order has kicked in. People are saying, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist." Well, the word that I like to use, so you get out of the conspiracy, being targeted as a conspiracy theorist, is centralization. So we understand political centralization, and we understand that governments like to centralize their power in Wellington. In our case, in Aotearoa. Same with the elite. They like to centralize their power as well. And they're greedy bastards, and they want to control the whole world, and they want to control the masses, because if they can't control the masses, then they will lose their record profits, and they could lose a lot. And I reckon more and more people are waking up to, gosh, what are we waking up to, whānau? Well, we're certainly, getting that tore out of our eyes and the pikako out of our ears, but more and more people are waking up. And I'm really pleased about that. But also, there are still people out there that choose not to look around, that choose not to look for the evidence, that choose to just stay ignorant, I guess. And kei te pai, that's their prerogative. It is all about pro-choice at the end of the day. But we will continue to fight for their rights, and we will continue to fight for their children's rights, even though they want to put blinkers on. So I know I'm mixing up the two, because I've got, what's happening with my papa, sitting right here, and then what's happening around the world sitting over here. And, we've got the wharepuni sort of, all of that encompasses my life at the moment. But so I apologize in advance if I'm going to flip from one to the other, because that's just where my brain is at the moment. So I apologize. As long as you can all keep up, that is cool. But talking about hospitals, and I said, we need to be vigilant of our whānau that go into hospitals. Absolutely vigilant. For our babies that go into hospital. If we can, we have to try and be self-sufficient, boost ourselves, eating good kai, using supplements if your kai ain't that good. But I went down, because I've got my own special cucumber salad, right, that I make, and I have raw garlic, raw ginger, and olive virgin oil, a high quality olive virgin oil, and lots of other goodies in it. And I went down and it was $7 for one cucumber. I couldn't believe it. And my muko can eat one just like that. My 3-year-old muko, she loves it more than I do. So I looked at it and I thought, oh, no, that's a bit of a luxury at the moment. And we got to pick and choose healthy kai, and whether or not we can afford that sort of kai. But talking about the health system, there's an article that came out on the 21st. The health minister says flu staff absences cause of new hospital pressures. Now, when I was, all the time for the weeks that I've been in and out of hospital with my father, absolutely, the nurses were talking about how much, number of staff being away and how much pressure they're under. And so, for me being there to care for my dad, that also took the pressure off the hospital system, and they were grateful. They were absolutely grateful. What it cost them is a kai. They had to feed me, which is great. But I think I did the work of a nurse and one assistant, so that's a 1.5 F, because it was 24-hour care, and basically they just had to make sure that they were checking Dad's vitals and that they were giving him the right rongoa and all of that stuff. So they had their job to do, and they could just come in and go, and I did the rest, and I was okay with that. It was cool. It was my time to be with my papa. It's a valuable time, but. Yeah, our health system is crumbling. The government hasn't done anything to prepare. They keep on warning us. They're saying warning, warning, warning. They're good at warning us. But what has this government done to prepare our hospitals? They talk about COVID-19. They talk about the flu. That was another thing. So when I was in the hospital, and it was, about 9 o'clock at night or after 9, and they were taking the flu trolley around. These two people, it was the flu trolley, and they had flu vaccination. They were going around late at night, asking people if they wanted the flu vaccination. Now, the ward that my father was in, 2A, 2B is the children's ward, and I just happened to be up by the lift. And because at the time there was only, because COVID had hit our ward, and so only one person was allowed, and so I tagged my sister, and she went in, and I waited out by the lifts. And when I was in there, I saw them going around the ward, and then they went from Ward 2A to Ward 2B. Now, guess what Ward 2B is? It's the children's ward. And I was like, most parents would have gone home about that time. Well, there might have been a few parents there, but I was like, I watched them wheel their trolley, and the two workers went in there. Why were they going in there if they weren't going in there to vaccinate children? And I was thinking, I'm hoping they got the parents' consent before they vaccinated these children. It was just odd. It was just an observation, whānau. So just sharing that as an observation. Why were they taking a vaccine trolley around that late at night? Don't know. What does Marion say? Rest homes ain't that good either. Their care has declined. Less nurse to client ratio. Slave nursing labour, which is abuse in my eyes. So I see the mandate as a blessing to get out. Now a nurse happily pour on the dole. Oh, ka aroha. That's right. I mean, the rest homes are struggling. If hospitals are struggling, the rest homes are struggling as well. And I just could not imagine my father being in a rest home now. I'm ringing up every day to make sure that it's all right. It's actually harder being away from him than it is being by him, because you're there with him. Yeah, gosh, I'm terrible. But anyway, yeah, there's a shortage. And here's the thing. Who was it? I'm trying to see who it was. I want to read it to you. Andrew Dickens, people's lives and livelihoods need to return to normal. Okay, I'll just read it out, Fun. I'll just read this article out to you, and then we'll have a bit of a corridor on it. So, hang on. You'll be pleased to know you are not about to hear another white middle-aged man pontificate about abortion, but I will talk about the effect of the ruling. Christopher Luxon felt compelled to make a public statement on the future of this country's laws based on a decision in another sovereignty with a completely different legal system shows the emotion and polarity behind the issue. Now, the decision is not a surprise. Republicans have been working towards this outcome for years. And when it comes to Supreme Court judges, we're talking very long games. The Democrats also play the game, which is why there was so much pressure on Ruth Bader Ginsburg to resign during Obama's tenure. She didn't, but then died under Trump, meaning he had the card to play in the game and stack the Supreme Court. And you'll hear a bit of corridor about stacking the Supreme Court. It's all politics, but that system's been around for a long time. As an outsider, I'm always amazed at the political influence in choosing the Supreme Court in the United States. It flies in the face of the traditional pillars of democracy and society, doesn't it? We have what we call the doctrine of separation of powers, where you can't have one interfering with the other. With the US, they seem to all merge and congregate, and it has a bit of an ancestral relationship. But anyway, now the four pillars are the judiciary, and I spoke about this earlier: the judiciary, the executive, the legislative, and the media. To work properly and to hold each other to account, they need to operate separately, and that's what I talked about, the separation of powers. But in allowing the legislative and the executive wings to choose the judiciary, that kind of all goes out the window, don't you think? This is an article I'm reading to you, Fano. Now, one of the reasons it resonates in this country is because at the centre of the issue is the state's power over the individual's body. You were probably thinking, oh, what's she on about? What's she talking about? That's, we weren't talking about this. But we're coming to the crunch now. So remember, the state's power over individual's body. This has been echoed here recently in our vaccination mandates. Over the weekend, I hosted an unvaccinated friend of my son's, and eventually the conversation turned into his motives and his concerns. It was emotional and compelling, and I was left feeling that he feels like a second-class citizen in his own country. He asked me, how can a government tell us we have to have something injected into our bodies? It is a valid question. My way of reasoning was it was a short-term measure to get vax rates up. The mandate was necessary to get to a minimum level of immune resilience to the virus. That resilience was needed to minimize transmission times and maximize survival rates, to motivate all without a deep-rooted reservation against vaccination. I thought it was going to be a temporary measure. Once we reached over 90% vaccination rates, I thought that it was mission accomplished and the mandates could ease, which mostly they have. Except for health workers, a sector suffering huge work shortages, I find it hard to reconcile the fact that all New Zealanders can enter this country unvaccinated, but an unvaccinated doctor cannot work. So I'll read that again, whānau. I found it hard to reconcile the fact that all New Zealanders can enter the country unvaccinated, but an unvaccinated doctor cannot work. Some may argue it's the government's desire to control. I don't. Well, that's his prerogative. He don't. They're not that organised. It's a job that's fallen through the cracks and needs to be addressed today. So he doesn't believe it's about control. Well, I beg to differ about that. I mean, they've achieved what they've wanted to achieve. But the point about this particular article is the government's power over the individual. And so when you look at what's happening, I don't know if you had the privilege of listening to a number of, I think, commentators talking about it, the pros and the cons about abortions. Personally, I believe in the sanctity of life myself personally, and we can talk about the woman's choice, the woman's body, but what about the choice of that human being that you're growing in your body? Does that human being not have a choice? The other issue that I have too is that when is a human being a human being? So we know that our abortion law, and here's the issue, Luxon will not. He's already stated that he will not change any abortion law, so that he actually supports full-term abortion. Full-term abortion, I believe, is murder. When is a baby a baby? When is a human being a human being? Is that a baby a human being when it first takes its breath? Or is that, I'm asking the question. No one's asked the question. When is that life in a woman's puku? And I've carried 5 myself. When is that life in that woman's puku? When is that baby an actual human being? And doesn't that fetus have rights? Doesn't that fetus have its own rights? So you talk about, Jacinda Ardern doesn't support the overturn of the Roe case, right? She doesn't support it. So she believes in a woman's body is a woman's choice, right? And yet yet my choice to stay unvaccinated, I guess my point is the hypocrisy in all of this. The hypocrisy. It's all right for a woman to say my choice, my body, and everybody, including our Prime Minister, will stand up and support that. And yet, when I say my choice, my body, I don't want that jab. I don't want that vaccination. As far as I'm concerned, you can't guarantee me the safety of that vaccine. You can't guarantee me the effectiveness of that vaccine. And yet you turn around and say women have a right to abort their baby. And also the other issue that I have as well is that it's gone from the criminal system. And this is a personal thing. And I believe all politicians should be able to should be able to speak on this as a conscience vote or a conscience choice, because it's a moral issue, I believe it's a moral issue, not a political issue. And when Luxon, reigned in one of his own, where is it? What about that MP's? What was his name? O'Connor. What about his constituents, and what about the mana of that MP? So we're having a lot of party politics over conscious votes now, and I guess we're getting into morality, and maybe this isn't a space or a time to think about it, but if we want to make changes, if we if we're talking about people's rights, right? Doesn't it start with the pepe in the womb? Our whakapapa starts with the pepe in the womb. When does that pepe, when does that pepe have rights? To have a full-term abortion is unconscionable to me. Is absolutely unconscionable, and it's analogous to murder as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. Might be a bit of a hot topic, but I think this whole morality, because I think that we've lost our way. Governments have lost their way, and I also think that part of bringing a new way, a third way, a different way, is bringing righteousness back, the sanctity of life, the sanctity of our whenua, the right for that pepe too, who has its own body, to live. And there's the korero around, what about if that baby is conceived through rape, incest, and all that? And I get that, it's really complex, and I'm not an expert in this space, and I'd hate to ever be in a predicament where whānau have to make a decision based on some of this stuff. I just spilt my nail polish. Didn't have the lid on it. Yeah, so wasting good nail polish there. Damn. Sorry, whānau. It's my purple nail polish. I just spilled it all over my table. This colour here. So yeah, I just, we have to stand. If we want to make a difference, we have to stand for the sanctity of life and the sanctity of our whenua. And if we believe in that, then that pepe, when does that pepe have rights itself as well? I don't know. It's a big take. I think it's a really big take. But we also got to remember that the US has a whole different legal system. They have a plural parliamentary system as well, and they've each country to their own, I guess. But I think the part where I was galled is that the PM supports the woman's right to choose to have an abortion or not, and yet that very same woman could not make the same choice to have an injection put into her body. And the other issue was shifting it from the Crimes Act to the Health Act. Under the Health Act, why do I have an issue around that? I have an issue around that because we're not talking about a kidney or a heart or any other organ that we've got in our body. We're talking about a human being. A human being. It's not a health issue. It's a life and death issue. So I also had an issue with them moving it from the Crimes Act and making it a health issue, because that actually minimises what we're doing. So anyway, I know that that's way off track, and maybe it's because I haven't had enough lives over the last few weeks that I'm just sort of throwing random stuff out there. But I'm talking about stuff that I care about, that I feel that it's important to talk about. I'm just going to go to some of your comments again, and I'm going to go backwards this time. What does Donna say? Moral, conscious, natural law. Where is it in full-term abortion, especially when the organ harvest of these full-term babies? Oh, wow, and is that, the agenda? Organ harvesting. Is that the agenda? I just can't comprehend as a human being that we can abort a baby at full term. At full term. Now, I've got a 6-month-old mokopuna, and I can't imagine, aborting a baby. They feel pain. Oh, I just really, it's unconscionable to fathom. Unconscionable to fathom. So when is it, whānau, that we say that these unborn children, because that's what they are, our whakapapa, our future, these unborn children, when does humanity say, or when do we say that they have a right to live too, that they have a right to their own bodies? And if we want to change the world, we've got to stand up for those babies that don't have a voice. Anyway, just my whakaaro and just me speaking out loud, whānau. And, I could offend people by my comments, but I find it offensive that we are willing to abort full-term babies and not blink an eyelid. I find it offensive that we are treating full-term babies like organs, like hearts and kidneys. So they come under the Health Act and not under the Crimes Act anymore. I have a problem with that. That's just my whakaaro. I don't really want to leave on that heavy note because it is quite a heavy note, and I guess a lot of the kōrero that I talk about are pretty full on. I'm just trying to see if there's other kōrero. Oh, another one that I was reading too was New Zealand failing to meet some human rights commitments. A report, Aotearoa is falling short of meeting its human rights commitments. Well, hello. Hey, hello. Such as the right to food, education, work, according to a new scorecard report. Data measuring the country's performance comes under the Wellington-based Human Rights Measurement Initiative, which compares human rights performances across 200 countries. The data placed New Zealand's score as very bad. Well, no surprises there. So we're doing terribly, whānau. We can't point the finger at other countries for their human rights breaches when we can't sort out our own shit. So, we've indebted the next generations or the next generations to come because of this COVID rollout. There's just, more and more information, more and more data is coming out about the corruption. There is stuff that I do want to share on Facebook, but I'm always reluctant because I'm concerned about my Facebook page. So I will hold back on some of the data, research, and science that gets shared to me purely because I want to protect my page. But one person that you can go to is Dr. Hatchard. So it's hatchardreport.com. And he's got, and he's a scientist, right? And he talks a lot about data, and that's why I really like reading his articles, because he brings in data and he shares his knowledge around data. For example, he's got distortions on population data, poor definition of unvaccinated status, all those sorts of things. The lack of peer review, the amalgamation of historic COVID figures. So, as a scientist, he puts a science lens on it, and he puts it in enough layman terms for you and I to understand. And he also talks about the lack of debate around all those topics. Really important to go and check out these types of scientists, kōrero, and there's plenty of them out there. Another one I do like reading is New Zealand DSOS. They have a lot of really good information. Even Voices for Freedom have a lot of good information. There's enough data and enough science out there, whānau, to know what we already know. We know that the vaccines are not safe. We know that the vaccines are not effective. They do not stop transmission, and they do not stop people from getting sick with it. But what they do is they cause a lot of harm. 62,000 adverse events. Over 3,000 of those events are serious. Over 1,000 people have myocarditis and pericarditis, and my father's one of them. And here's the thing, this is MedSafe, and we know that MedSafe only collect 5% of the data that's out there. I mean, MedSafe has said that, so it's not conclusive. The information, you would think that if you're bringing an untested vaccine into our country, that the data would be mandatory to collect, but it's not. That's the first sign of corruption. When you are not collecting the right data so we can see what's actually happening. When you are not supporting, because I've stated it to the doctors. I said, my father's vaccine injured. I said, a second vaccine, and I say it when they come in and they stand there and they're a bit like stunned mullets. It's like, nah, fuck you. You know, you can stand there and you can listen because you have supported this regime and you have not spoken out, even though you have a whole ward full of people that are vaccine injured. I've bumped into people in cafeterias. I've bumped into people in lifts who are vaccine injured, and you wouldn't know unless you had a conversation with them. I've bumped into whānau who have said their family are vaccine injured. So there's a lot of whānau out there that are vaccine injured, and no one's doing a thing about it. Zilch. So I don't have a problem to state to the doctors, my father was injured with this second vaccine and now the boosters. And I said, and by crikey, if you give him another booster. By crikey, I said to them. That's what I said. But hey, you know, what are they going to say? I'm wrong? Not one doctor turned around and said I was wrong. Not one doctor challenged me. Not one. Probably thought I had, big kahunas to even contemplate saying that to them. But it was like, I'm at that point where I don't give a shit really. And we have to defend what we already know. And I know that, this whole term called long COVID, whānau, is code for vaccine injured. Where did long COVID? Who pulled that out of the air? They can't even defend themselves anymore. The data has shifted. There's too much information, too much science out there now, and the court cases are starting to come through all around the world. Watch this space. But anyway, whānau, hang in there. I certainly am hanging in there. I'm going to hit the sack shortly. I'm a bit tired. What's the time? Thank you for listening to me. Gosh, I talked how long have I been talking? Aroha mai, you're still hanging in there, so I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been awesome. I've missed you guys heaps. So thank you for listening to me. Sorry if I've gone wee wah wah, but that's where my brain's at the moment. I can say I am needed the break with my family. It was awesome. Needed to touch base and hold my mukapuna again, and just re-energize myself. And I loved the game on Saturday nights. Holy moly. So that's what I'll leave on. I'll leave on the Kiwi test against Tongan, our Tongan whānau. It was amazing. All you could see all around the whole Mount Smart Stadium was red flags and red everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Loved it. And you know what? When the Kiwis got a try, they were jumping up and down for us as well. That's the atmosphere, right? And then it was, here's the thing, in the corporate box, someone threw a bottle at a woman from the corporate box, and that started a reaction, a chain reaction, right? Someone threw a bottle out the window that hit a woman and gave her a black eye. Now, here's the thing. Everyone else has to have those plastic containers, right? And the corporate boxes get to have bottles. Now, either someone was stupid and drunk. I hope they get done for assault, to be honest, because that's just talk about classism and thinking if you're given, you have the right to throw a bottle of alcohol out your corporate box that gives a woman a black eye. But I guess I didn't want to talk about that, but it just goes to show where classism is at, eh? If everyone else has to drink out of those plastic containers, so do those buggers. They can drink out of those plastic containers as well. But anyway, the atmosphere was electric. We just thoroughly enjoyed ourselves at that game. It was awesome to be around everyone. No masks on. Everyone's just, it was a sense of normality. And I don't think we're going to be here when the Warriors come. You can see League is my game, eh? I don't think we're going to be here when the Warriors are playing on Sunday here in Mount Smart. I mean, that's going to be electrifying. If we are, I'll be heading up that way. But here's the thing. We had in Pokere-Phillips on Saturday. We had like the league finals at Rest Hills, where they always played here in Pokere-Phillips. And I bumped into a friend of ours at the pools, actually, because that's where me and my darling go. That's our thing, as well as the sauna, the spa, the pools. And he was saying that they had the vaccine clinic there, and they were giving away tickets to the league game if you got that. And he was telling me that's what was happening at Rest Hills, and I was like, wow. That's that whole bribery. Hey, bro, you get a booster. Hey, bro, you get a jab, and we'll give you a ticket to the league game. Yukira, hey. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that little trivia with you. Kia pai tōpō. I'm going to sign out now, whānau. Don't know when I'm going to come back on. If I'm still here, Popo, then I might do a live in the morning. Otherwise, it could be, I don't know when. But have an awesome pō with your loved ones. And, blessings to all our whānau. Ka kite anō, kia ora.